Very good. Well, there are absolutely no words to apologize for how very, very late we are, other than to say we have a lot of people who are trying to have very good discussions and thorough debates and bring all of this out to you publicly. So I apologize and please excuse us for our continued tardiness. So I will call the Monday, December 14th, 2020, I have the wrong agenda, Budget and Finance Committee meeting to order. Excuse me. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call, please, Mrs. Orr.
Ms. Cruz?
Present.
Mrs. Dempsey?
Present.
Ms. Fox?
Present.
Ms. Hume?
Present.
Mr. Malloy?
Present.
Mr. McAndrew?
Present.
Mrs. Welby?
Present.
Mrs. Yanni?
Present.
Ms. Gilmartin?
Present.
I'm present.
Okay. Since I did print out the wrong agenda, Director Yanni, Mr. Laffey, I believe we have a review of the budget.
Yes, yeah, the meeting has been called for the administration and for our business manager, Mr. Laffey, to review the proposed 2021 budget. So I'm going to let Mr. Laffey take it from here.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Good evening. I'm going to go over the budget presentation that's been updated for tonight that you will be asked to vote on at our next meeting later this evening. I will just I'm going to focus on how we were able to balance the budget from the last time we met on November 9th. I won't go through all 17 pages of it unless someone would like me to, but I'm going to focus on that. I'm going to focus on some of our projected 2020 results and, just have a brief discussion on fund balance and things of that nature. So I'm going to share my screen. Okay, when we last met on November 9th, we proposed total revenue of $166,301,000. This evening, we've increased that number by just shy of $167,000. That is, there's been an adjustment to our local revenue for $6,800 related to the IDEA funding. We got our 2021 allotment, and that is, we've adjusted to be the actual amount that we will be eligible for to receive in 2021. And we've also increased our state revenue for our PlanCon reimbursements, our rental sinking fund reimbursement. As you are aware, we've had filed a PlanCon K for the 2019s that you had approved. Tonight, you'll accept the PlanCon K from the state of Pennsylvania, which sets forth the rate and the reimbursement percentage for that bond. With that new accepted and approved PlanCon, we would estimate seeing approximately $160,000 increase in our subsidy. That would bring our total subsidy in the PlanCon line item to $1.2 million. Expenditures, we are proposing a reduction of just over $3.9 million in expenditures, and they're more easily summarized here. As you are aware, we have issued approximately $30 million of bonds for capital improvements. In year one, that interest in principal, which the principal is only, I believe, $5,000, will be capitalized. That was previously presented to you to be budgeted for in 2021. The rationale or the reasoning to do that is, part of a longer term plan as well. If it turns out the need that it's not necessary for us to capitalize this, those dollars could be transferred from the sinking fund that will be established to our capital projects funds. If that is the case, any monies that we're able to transfer to our capital project funds would obviously reduce the need for the second round of borrowings that we anticipate occurring in 22 or 23 for our larger capital plan, which you will also be presented tonight. We're going to go into a little bit of detail on the 2020 results, but before we do that, we are experiencing significant reductions in some of our expenditure line items. As part of that, we are able to possibly significantly reduce the amount of a TAN that we are going to issue this year, or potentially not at all. Now, I'd originally budgeted 700,000 for TAN interest in that line item. I did not want to completely remove it, but so I reduced it by 150,000, leaving about 100. I'm sorry, I reduced it by 550,000, leaving 150,000 in case we feel there's a need for us to do that, which we are going to explore when we enter January of 21. We're also proposing a reduction of just over $1 million related to our healthcare. Our healthcare consultant has identified ways that we can save through our on some of our specialty prescription products, and this is that's the amount that she has calculated that she feels can be realized. Transportation, we've talked a lot about it. We've been meeting weekly. I've been meeting weekly, and I think the transportation team has been meeting multiple times a day and during the week. We're still not there. We're still not finalized what we feel our routes and needs are. However, we are comfortable estimating about a reduction of just about 422,000 from what we have proposed. We hope it is actually larger, but at this time, this is the number based off of the data that we have. We want to reduce our special ed 300, your 1,200, 300 by just over $800,000. That is due to the reconfiguration of our PCA staff to focus more on high need classrooms. Ms. Baddock feels there's a potential to reduce our contracted, again, this is contracted, not district staff, contracted PCAs by approximately 25 people. Annualized out, that's your impact. We're going to adjust to the 1,800 function in the proposed final. That included a full year of a pre-K program. We've adjusted it down for the elimination of the 4-year-old pre-K in September of 2021. Crossing guards, again, tying into the transportation, there's been a lot of review of our walking zones. In speaking to the transportation director, we're estimating we can reduce approximately 15 crossing guards due to the reconfiguration of the stops, average traffic counts, and I think just realigning people where they're needed. And we are going to increase our charter cyber by approximately 100,000. Since we last met, I believe we saw approximately 22 student increase in our current enrollment with the charter cybers. So that 100,000 is going to just represent potentially what would impact us for 22. So in total, an increase of 166 million in revenue, a decrease in 3.9 million of expenditures gives us our adjusted final budget of our adjustments to the final budget of about 4.1 million to present a balanced budget for 2021 of 166,468,576. Any questions on those adjustments before we go into the projected 2020?
Thank you, Pat.
Okay. So we've been, again, reporting to the board, following closely on the 2020 budget, the impact of COVID on the budget, and actions the district has taken to hopefully mitigate some of those the impact of it. If you recall, the 2019 audit, which you will be asked to accept tonight, had the district ending with a positive fund balance of $1,435,261. We are estimating that at the end of 20 to have approximately 8.1. Okay, that's an increase of 6.7. All right, so we've been reporting, we're estimating that we're going to be down about 2.9 million in salaries, 4.2 in benefits, which 3 million of it is approximately 3 million, I think it's 2.9 is in the healthcare line item. And the difference is related to your PSERS and your FICA. Obviously, a decrease in your salaries is going to have a decrease in your pension obligation. Contracted services, we're down about 1.1 million, heavily related to the Kelly services need for day-to-day subs, and the contracted services for special ed. Other purchase services, we're actually going to be 450. We're projecting to be 450 above budget. Okay, but in that line item, there's two large expenditures. There's your tuition. There's your transportation. The district's been operating obviously in a virtual model and has had a fraction of the amount of vehicles on the road as compared to prior years. So we're estimating transportation to be about 2.3 million below. Okay, that's going to be offset by charter cyber being about 2.9 million above. Okay, so we're going to net out about we're going to be over budget in that object by about 450,000. In revenues, we're projecting to be overall $830,000 below budget. Now, I will say what those numbers presented here exclude any CARES funding that was unbudgeted, and excludes any CARES funding that was unbudgeted, CARES expenditures that was unbudgeted as well. So this is looking, at the end of the year, any funding we have from CARES or any expenses we have from CARES is going to be funded with funding that we had from ESSER or CARES or COVID-related funding. So that's how you get to your approximate $6.7 million increase. The next steps with that, so there are some things that are concerning for 2022. One of them being, I just reported that transportation expenses are down 2.3 million. Well, the district also receives reimbursement from the state for transportation. Now, we don't anticipate that hitting in 2021, but we do anticipate that hitting sometime in 2022 and may possibly even 2023. Depending, and we're estimating that impact to potentially be $750,000 to $1 million reduction in subsidy. Okay, so in 22's budget, when we get there, instead of having 1.3 million budgeted for transportation subsidy, we're probably gonna be faced with an issue where that's cut down to 300 to 500,000. All right, but the district only receives 30% reimbursement on every dollar that we spend. So the net effect is we're still significantly to the positive, even with that. There are some other areas that we would like to potentially, prior to the audited financials, possibly assign or commit some of that fund balance. Here are some notes that what is a fund balance, right? So it can be used to offset a temporary shortfall in revenues or cover one-time capital or one-time expenses. There are some uncertainties with some of our state subsidies, specifically the Ready to Learn block grant. I mean, we're budgeting right now in 2021 to be approved in 21-22 for the same amount of Ready to Learn funding as we have in prior years. And again, these are estimates, they're not final. We're going to have to revisit this after the audit results that will be finalized. Again, here we're saying that we're going to offset reduction in transportation subsidies. We can potentially, the recovery plan calls for taxes to the Act 1 index yearly. This, depending on what the final audit result is, it could potentially reduce the need for tax increases at or above the Act 1 index in future years. Offset flat funding, potentially offset any spikes in healthcare that we may see. We're down approximately 2.9 million in 2020. I don't know if we're going to see a surge in that expenditures in 2022 or in future years. It could also be used to offset the need for future capital borrowings. All this can be, you can commit or you can assign a fund balance for a specific purpose. The state actually recommends that a district maintain a fund balance of approximately 8%. So for the Scranton School District, that's over 13 million. And there are some recovery plan provisions as well, Admin 05, stating that we shall establish a budgetary reserve and and we have done the more robust fund balance policy, where that states that we are able to assign excess or surpluses for future initiatives, one of them being fund balance restoration. And here are some revenue. 08 also talks about what can be used with windfall revenues years unlike this, negative elimination of the negative fund balance. We can invest in curriculum, possibly provide salary increases, and the elimination or moderation of the required tax increases. So that's a lot to digest, I'm sure. Does anyone have any questions?
So I guess the question I'll ask, and I just got one. So we're saying that, it looks like it's a more better news than we expect in the preliminary budget with the fund balance of being around, $6 million. Is there still a reason why we have to increase the taxes, that 1.7 million, which comes to 3.9%? Could we explain that to the public?
Certainly, I'll do my best, and if Dr. Finan would like to jump in as well. But what I would say is, the 2021 budget, it wasn't easily balanced. We had to defer $1 million of debt service. So as you start 2022, we're looking at potentially an increase in debt service of $1 million. Okay. We already talked about, we know that we're going to have a shortfall in transportation subsidy of approximately $750,000 or $1 million. Historically, our charter costs has a compound annual growth rate of about 12%. At our current cost now, that's about another 1.2 million. So, we're looking at, increased expenditures before we even put our pencil to the paper to, prepare a budget. Those are things that we already know. And I would say that, a school district who has limits set by Act 1, if, not having a tax increase now, you really can never make up that revenue. You'll never catch that revenue. And I believe there's some illustrations in the recovery plan that kind of illustrate that. It certainly is. It allows you to compound and grow.
Thank you,
That's
Pat.
why it's, yeah. Excuse me.
Dr. Finan, I don't know if you want to speak to where this, I think someone is not muted, maybe. I'm getting a little feedback here. Dr. Finan, maybe you want to speak to how this fits into the recovery plan, but I think, Pat, you really illustrated beautifully the uncertainty going forward. And, it is good that we are in such a strong financial position at this moment, but I think that's all the more reason to stay the course. We may be able to use some of these resources to offset increases, as I think the word, I don't remember what the word you used a little further down on the paper was, that was very clear, just mitigating this a little bit going forward. But I certainly think we need to stay the course with our plans in light of the recovery plan, and take this as a bit of good news and moving us further a little more quickly than we could have anticipated.
And Katie, I'm Director Gilmar, excuse me. If I can add one other thing, we talked about.
Pat, we're on a first name basis.
Yeah. It's, obviously we know that there's going to be transportation subsidy shortfalls, but I've glanced over and I forgot to mention our basic ed and possibly our special ed funding. With our recent drop in enrollment, that's a factor in the fair funding formula is your enrollment. It's your average daily membership, and they use they use 3 years of your ADMs to calculate as a portion. Again, the formula is complex, but it is a factor in it. And in the 2021 enrollment year, it's probably based off of the chart that we follow, we'll probably see an impact in the 22-23 state budget. So, what that impact is, we don't know at this time, but hopefully it's something we can handle. But again, we feel that it's prudent to have some of these reserves for many of the uncertainties that we're obviously faced with over the next year or two.
If I may, Director Gilmartin, I'd like to add a few things. Thank you very much. This is very good news for the Scranton School District. I'm very proud of the work that has gone into this, but make no mistake about it, it is an anomaly. It is not, we have not had a normal year. If we had opened our doors, transported all the children and as normally we would have in September, and we had this data that we'd be looking at today, I would feel really excited. I am very cautious, and as you all should be. Our revenues are down, as Mr. Laffey just said, over, I believe, 830,000. Our assessed valuation is declining, and that is unusual. That is not normal for a school district. That is not healthy. So that's a word of caution. We need to monitor that. Our Ready to Learn block grant is just what it says. It's a block grant. It is not part of our BEF, which is our basic education funding. So that is here, we're counting on it, but that could disappear. It's like any kind of grant could disappear. I'm sure you all realize that the state itself is not doing well financially. So I think to expect extra money, extra grants, additional BEF and SEF funding, I think if we're flat funded, we should be happy with that. And so we need to be cautious. The transportation subsidy shortfalls and the shortfalls that we will have because of our ADMs declining, we need to plan for that. It's your fund balance is your savings account, just like you would have in your own home. It's to cover those costs when the things that we're not planning for. And you've never had that since I've been in the district. You've had borrowed funds, but these are real funds that we can set aside and use. And if, when we are building our 2022 budget, we are looking at the same wonderful picture, I can guarantee you, I will be coming to you and saying there is, and I did send this out to all the board members, in the recovery plan, there's an option to mitigate raising taxes to the Act 1 index. That remains to be seen for the future. I think we have to take each year as it goes. I will tell you, this budget also corrects some historical mistakes that we have found throughout building this budget. Some of them come in terms of salaries for people who were never placed correctly. And we are fixing that, just as we would for any person or group. If they were inappropriately placed on a salary scale, we would correct that immediately. That's what this budget does. The other piece of this budget is, and I'll just speak to the administrative side of the budget, the 2021 budget is less than the 2019 budget. That means we're working on right sizing our staff. And we are working with open positions, as you all know, and we're continuing to work with open positions. It means that everybody's is working very hard to get their job done. Mr. Laffey talked about the Transportation Committee. That committee has worked relentlessly to try to correct the errors that we've had, and we're still working through that. So it is good news. We're not where we need to go yet. We're not totally recovered, but we are on our path. And I applaud everyone for working very hard on this budget. It does not take any money out of the schools. We were able to find that money and work hard towards resolving that. So what we are doing is committing a curriculum budget that can be used. and it will be in a central location so we can use it. And I know that we're going to have other needs upon our return to the new school year, because students are going to be at varying levels. And we know that we have to accommodate that. And the last piece I'd like to talk about is PSERS. As you all know, you've heard about PSERS, and it has climbed. It has climbed through the years. I used to keep my own chart and watch that climb and plan for that. It will continue to climb. We know that it will continue to climb. What we don't have is a chart this time. We just have a number. We need to start to set aside money for PSERS. That's good fund management. The last piece, and we've all been through the retirement incentives and the burden on the school district. We need to start to create a fund so that that is something that we can fund as it goes. And we're going to build a fund balance for that. So I applaud everyone who's worked very hard on this budget. It's an excellent budget for the Scranton School District. We have come a very long way through great leadership and great management. And to be very honest, we haven't filled a number of leadership positions because we are all just saying we will do what we have to try to right the ship, and we're headed in the right direction. Thank you very much for your time.
Mr. Laffey, I just have one question. What is the impact of deferring the debt service? I heard you say $1 million, but I wasn't sure if that was $1 million in interest that we're deferring, or is that going to be a compounded interest?
So on 2021, obviously it's $1,065,000 that we're not expending that year.
Right.
The charts that our financial advisors have given us, I believe it would add approximately $600,000 to the total debt service on the $30 million issue. Again, though, the goal is that if this is not necessary, if we anticipate having a $30 million second borrowing, and things work out and we can make those interest payments on our own, those dollars can be transfer to the capital project fund and reduce the amount that we're going to plan on borrowing second round.
Okay.
And again, some of these, if the estimates do come in, part of our recommendation would be to, establish a capital projects fund through, budgetary savings, not through borrowed dollars.
Perfect. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Questions from anybody else?
I'd simply like to congratulate the district for finding and making these adjustments and bringing in a budget that is not taking money out of the schools and out of the students. I endorse Dr. Finan's comments that we are really, next year is going to be, if this year has been a roller coaster ride, next year we get on the super cyclone, because the state reductions in revenue that I've been looking at are very substantial. And I think that the prudence of maintaining a general fund balance and adding to that general fund balance as we can, it may be the one good thing that came out of COVID is it gave us a kickstart for that general fund balance. But I think, Dr. Finan, there is a recommended percentage for a fund balance, and this would be about, 35–40% of what we really should have.
Oh, yes. The recommended percentage it's actually listed here. It's 8% of the total expenditures, which would be 13.6 million. And just in reference, I love this reference point. Our cost per month as a district is around 14 million. So even if we had 13.6 million in a fund balance, that wouldn't even cover 1 month of our expenditures. So 8% is not unreasonable. We need to move in that direction. But of course, it's one step at a time, and that's what we're taking tonight.
Yeah.
Dr. Finan, can you clarify regarding the fund balance? The 8% is unrestricted fund balance. Am I correct in that we can, as Pat touched on earlier, assign these different segments of potential fund balance for different uses, which is something we'll consider at a later date. But that's how some of these, I think it can be a little confusing when you look at other districts and see much larger fund balances that exceed 8%, but that's how that happens, correct?
That is correct. You're right.
And Director Gilmartin, the 8% is what's allowable or recommended for a district of our size with our size budget. There are different tiers. I believe smaller school budgets are able to carry a larger unassigned balance.
Yes.
Okay.
It
But
is
8% is the number that applies to the SSD.
Thank you.
correct.
Can I also say, Pat and Dr. Finan and everybody who's worked on this, that there is a level of relief in knowing that there will be a few dollars. If I'm correct, when COVID hit, we had virtually nothing in our capital fund, in our general fund balance. And to know that if anything else goes on, dear God, please, I hope it doesn't, but to know that we do have a contingency fund is a bit like grandma's money stashed under the mattress. We've got it there in case anything else comes up. And it would be, it is for me personally very reassuring to know that we have a little cushion should anything happen.
That's correct.
Absolutely.
It's also true that it puts us in a better position when we do need to borrow money, correct? It's sort of the irony of the whole financial system that the more you have, the easier it is to get more. But I think that's I think that's an important point as we're making these decisions and trying to understand why we do have to stay the course with tax increases, or why we may be looking to squirrel this money away rather than put it in some other places. That will also strengthen our position when it comes to borrowing.
That's correct.
That's correct.
Thank you. Does anybody have anything else? I just think the other important point to make here, everyone did work so hard on this budget, and I'm also seeing so much collaboration with the city and certainly, I think the county when appropriate. I think although it is certainly difficult to face a tax increase at any time, I think the fact that the city and the county are not planning to implement one this year, and perhaps we would be offsetting going into the future, maybe that creates a little bit of a balance. But I think Pat and Director Yanni, you certainly, I hope you would agree that the work on the tax policy committee is very interesting. And I don't know if your subgroups have also had smaller conversations during the week in preparation for our next public meeting. But, I think that a lot of the cylinders are firing in our community, and not only is it great to see the school district moving into a stronger financial position, but to see all of these other groups working and collaborating, I think it really gives us a lot of hope and optimism for the future of this city. Thank you. So do we have anything else for the Budget and Finance Committee? Okay, then Director Yanni, I will take a motion to adjourn this meeting. May I have I think that was a motion. May I have a second?
Yes.
I'll second.
Very good. All in favor?
Aye.
We will adjourn the Budget and Finance Committee meeting and move into our board meeting following the Budget and Finance Committee meeting for Monday, December 14th. We'll call the meeting to order. Please stand once again for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation,
under
God,
God,
with indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, please, Mrs. Orr.
Ms. Cruz,
Present.
Mrs. Dempsey,
Present.
Ms. Fox,
Present.
Ms. Hume,
Present.
Mr. Malloy,
present.
Mr. McAndrew,
Present.
Mrs. Welby,
Present.
Mrs. Yanni,
Yes, present.
Ms. Gilmartin,
Present.
9 present.
We'll have a motion to approve the agenda, but before we do that, does anyone have anything they would like to remove from the consent agenda? And I will take a motion to approve the agenda.
So
So
moved.
moved.
Second,
I'll second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, the agenda is approved. Mrs. Orr, communications to the board?
Yes, executive sessions were held on November 8th, 2020, November 9th, 2020, and this evening to discuss real estate litigation, personnel, and negotiations.
Thank you. Mr. Rowdy, a solicitor's report?
The only report I have is to wish everyone a very healthy and happy holiday season.
Thank you. Mrs. McTiernan, superintendent's report?
Yes, good evening, everyone. Thank you, Director Gilmartin. I have some great news to share with everybody regarding some of our schools. This is my favorite part, when I get to share some great things about our students. So with regards to, I'm going to go through Northeast Intermediate first. The following 8th grade students have joined the Panther Press and have been working with their moderator, Miss Amy Sandrovich, to prepare our first ever digital newspaper. The first edition is expected to be released next week. Student reporters include Ava Alt, Catherine Hill, Declan Moran, Jane Schwartz, Keegan Kelpin, Catherine Doherty, Mariah McCavage, Matthew Hill, Nevaeh Tompkins, Treb Kekow, and Trisha Patel. At West Scranton Intermediate School, Devin Robinson, 8th grade student, won the Hyde Park Memorial VFW Annual Patriots Pen Contest. The Student Council held a holiday food drive that benefited the St. Patrick's Parish Food Pantry. Our November Student of the Month at West Scranton Intermediate School is Kimberly Morales, and she's in 7th grade. Our November Scholar of the Month is Jasmine Patakis, and she's in 8th grade. The West Scranton Intermediate School Art Club recently held a virtual art show. Our drama club at Western Intermediate, the cast for Box, has been announced. Practices have been taking place via Zoom. The first read-through has been held and was very successful. And also at Western Intermediate, the newspaper club will release their first virtual edition, and it will go live before the break. At Scranton High School, most recent students of the month: 9th grade, Olivia Little; 10th grade, Jada Citron; 11th grade, Hannah Jeffers; and in 12th grade, Mia Velez. Most recent athletes of the month at Scranton High School are Brian McCormack in 9th grade cross country and Riley Bittenbender, 10th grade soccer. Scranton senior Paige McConaughey was featured yesterday in the edition of School Notes in the Scranton Times. She ranks in the top 10% of her class. She was the winner of the Best Performer Award at the 2020 Mid-Atlantic Show Choir Spectacular. She participates in Night Rhythms, Night's Amplified Show Band, and the Glitter and Gold Show Choir. Members of Tomorrow's Leaders Today: she's a National Honor Society member, she's a Music Honor Society, and participates in track and field and cross-country teams. Paige is also a Scranton High Student Ambassador for and is involved in the school's Coaches versus Cancer program. So congratulations, Paige. And at West Scranton High School sophomore Martin Turry was selected as the Central PA attendee for the Hugh O'Brien Youth Leadership Seminar for the 2020-21 academic school year. Since 1958, the Hugh O'Brien Youth Leadership Award seminars have brought together outstanding sophomore students to interact with distinguished leaders in business, government, and education. The goal of this award is to develop youth volunteers who are dedicated to a life of leadership, service, and innovation. Sophomore students were chosen based on a written essay describing the most rewarding and challenging aspects of being a leader in school or in the community. This year's virtual seminar will take place in June through the dates June 11th through the 13th. So congratulations to all of those students. It's so exciting. We miss you terribly, but we're so happy that you're doing such wonderful things. So thank you again. And I'd also like to announce that the food distribution over the holiday will take place on December 18th, which is a Monday. So this is for our school community. So December 28th, and again, I will send a one call to our school community, but I want to let everyone know that on Monday, December 28th, we will serve 5 days of meals for breakfast and lunch for our students. Again, the pickup locations remain the same at West and Scranton High School, Kennedy, Armstrong, Whittier, and Tripp Elementary Schools. And the last thing I would like to say is I hope everybody has a wonderful holiday. And again, students, we can't wait to see you. So hopefully after the holiday, this pandemic is able to move forward and we're able to see you again. So thank you very much and for your time.
Thank you very much. And it is really wonderful to hear such good news about our students. Their accomplishments won't be stopped by COVID. So thank you very much. PSBA report, Director Dempsey.
Thank you, Director Gilmartin. I'm just going to highlight some of the items tonight for the sake of time. General Assembly officially ended on November 30th regarding some of our legislative updates. Some of the new acts signed into law in November. Act 98 regarding broadband expansion, which provided new definitions and allows electric cooperative corporations or an affiliate to use existing infrastructure facilities to deploy fiber optic lines. So it would help districts like ours and more rural areas expand their internet service. Act 10 of 2020 are protections for student assault victims. That is now signed into law as well. Again, I touched on that on a previous PSBA report, but PSBA's did work with the bill's sponsor and leadership so that schools have flexibility in protecting and ensuring that students who are victims of sexual assault by another student at their school will not be re-victimized by having to see that individual every day. Some of the advocacy work that PSBA has influenced, tax anticipation notes, student vision screening, broadband accessibility funding program, school code bills regarding school year changes are just some of the advocacy work that PSBA has been doing and working on. One note is Governor Wolf did veto House Bill 1737 that offered limited COVID-19 liability protections against frivolous and unsubstantiated lawsuits involving claims of exposure to the virus. It is the governor's belief that the bill would have undermined COVID-19 mitigation efforts and endangered the public health by enacting overly broad immunity protections from civil liability due to the pandemic. So that isn't necessarily a win for PSBA or school districts across the state, but it is what it is. There is some COVID relief legislation at the federal level. They're talking about a package that may contain some new aid for public schools, new aid for state and local governments, additional funding for child nutrition and school meal programs, as well as funding for broadband internet and digital infrastructure. I do have a letter that the board can kind of send out to ask our members of Congress to support the COVID relief measure. And this is again, US Congress, not state Congress. One note, legislative advocacy training, school board participated in that on November 16th with Mr. Harry Mathias. I got a lot out of it. I hope everybody else did. It focused a lot on charter school funding reform, focusing on cyber charters and how they're able to provide services at a much, much lower cost than traditional charter as well as public school districts. So we're asking for reform and we're asking for that support, which I would hope is widespread. And last but not least, the PSBA's Delegate Assembly did adopt their 2021 legislative platform on November 7th. Again, some of those high-level topics are enacting meaningful charter school reforms, providing significant and continued financial investment for school districts, address Pennsylvania's pension funding crisis, and provide for the safety and mental health needs of students. And that is all I have. You're welcome for summarizing. Sorry.
No, that was great. Thank you very much. And thank you for setting up the legislative advocacy training. I agree that was very valuable. We also, a couple of us participated in a PSBA roles and responsibilities training this week. That was great. And I hope it's something we can bring back to the full board to participate in together, I think it would really be very valuable. So PSBA continues to be a wonderful resource. And I was even asked this week to participate in a panel discussion in January. I believe the sessions are the 21st and the 25th, about running for the school board. So I don't have all of the details yet, but I did want to mention it tonight, get it on the record, because we won't really be together in this way between now and then. So it's an exciting topic for them to cover. Moving on to public comment. At this time, we will accept public comment. Mrs. Orr, you'll call the speakers. And as always, I would ask everyone to keep a certain level of decorum here. Please keep your comments to the agenda items and be respectful of everyone's time. Thank you very much. Mrs. Orr?
Sure. First, we have Vivian Williams. Vivian?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. I can't believe I'm first. It's like I hit the lottery or something. No. As I've appreciated all that have reached out, encouraging me to run in the upcoming school board election, it's just not in the cards, as my children have and continue to need more, especially whenever we do enter post-COVID, and I've realized that that solely is my responsibility to make happen. I understand what recovery brings and truly get it. And if you know me, I voice my opinion and even support some of the already made tough decisions you all have made. Though what frightens me is that the voices such as mine that aren't listened to, I feel as if teachers have the SFT and administration has the board. But at the end of the day, parents such as myself who are trying their hardest to stay the course that has been commented on are finding it harder and harder when they feel they have no one in their corner or are listening to them. And is the main reason as after tonight, I won't be speaking during public comment and continue to reflect where my children will be best educated. Splitting fifth grade into two different education classifications as presented by the board of administration is not the same as dividing Northeast students into two middle schools. If you allow the splitting of fifth grade as administration proposes, you are depriving the entire West elementary school community, which I happen to be passionate about, of the benefit of fifth grade and middle school as administration presented included. The growth of education inequities, in all honesty, keeps me up at night. And if we don't have some real in the weeds conversation, those weeds will only grow. We are about to receive Q2 progress reports, and you still cannot support every student properly. It surprises me that is not more of a focus of any board meeting, let alone not even talked about at length at the last board meeting, as I was left with more questions than answers. Please know that when we return to brick and mortar, don't worry about my children, because they all have their own devices, are supported by private tutors, and are in every live, along with our family forming, even virtually, strong relationships with our West Intermediate sixth grade Lambda House teachers, who, by the way, are amazing, along with the continued support of our amazing team at Willard. Mrs. Boyce and Mr. Budd have been doing an exceptional job leading during a global pandemic and deserve all the praise tonight. What I do worry about is my daughter Sarah's mental well-being that the district still hasn't addressed in developing a mental wellness plan for students post-COVID. Make no mistake, Sarah and I would not be surviving without her fifth grade homeroom teacher, Miss Kelly Kingsley. Though from my understanding, some elementary schools have guidance counselors. Willard does not. My daughter would especially benefit from being at a school that does have one. Though again, all schools in this district are not given the same resources. Throughout my professional career, which includes obtaining an MBA, if I was faced with half the tasks the administration has been faced with, many of my bosses and past professors would have had said 3 words to me, and that is figure it out. And that's what I've been asking the board to do, and what I spoke about last month in thinking outside of the box. My suggestion is first to make an account of what technology is still laying around within district buildings, as I've heard there's many Chromebooks still in there. I heard that, Jenny, thank you. Sorry. It's okay, thank you.
Thank you, Vivian. Next, we have Frances Regan.
Yeah.
Can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Okay, my name is Frances Regan. I'm a proud member of the executive board of this SFT and a proud member of George Bancroft Elementary School faculty for over 30 years. So when I hear you say no money out of the schools in your budget, I find that very hard to swallow. But I'm not going to bring emotion. I'm going to bring fact. Why Bancroft? So I went to work and I looked at the data on the Scranton School District website. In the Capital Needs Report of March 2020, the sources being the 2012 feasibility study, the 2018 PFM facilities report, and the 2020 capitals priorities. Bancroft was built in 1828. 1 to 5 years short term is about $2 million to get it up to date. 5+ years is another $1.1 million. Total cost $3.2 million to upgrade Bancroft. Another building built in 1895, renovated in 1966, perhaps one of your oldest. 1 to 5 short term, $2.4 million. 5+, $2 million, for a total of $4.5 million to upgrade that building. Another building very similar to Bancroft, built in 1931. Between 1 to 5 short term, $2.3 million. 5+ years, $1.6, for a total of $4 million to upgrade. So again, the data doesn't show me why Bancroft. I dug deeper. I looked into your Bancroft data for number of students that go there. 238. You're missing 7 more that were put out of the kindergarten at Bancroft because we went over our number and put into Adams and Armstrong. So that's 245 students. Then you can take faculty and staff. That's 270 in a capacity building of 300. Now, when it was asked last time, is the 300 for the students or for the faculty? That wasn't answered. So let's just say the 300 is for students. So you're at 245. That leaves you 55 more seats. Come out the door, Bancroft School, turn to your right and walk down a few blocks. You will find a project called Laceworks Village. It is building townhouses, apartments, and multifamily homes. They expect around 127 units. They are also incorporating a daycare in their facility and on their grounds. So they are assuming to have children. Those children would fall into the Bancroft area zone for the boundary. They would be our students. We've lost so many students already, and I hope they come back to Scranton when this pandemic is over. So where will they go? And they may be Bancroft students. In the past, you have closed schools, or your other boards have. There has not been enough room for these students. Again, Audubon School was closed and sent to Whittier. You needed to rent an annex to have capacity for all your students. What happens when the students come back and the Lacework development is built and you have no Bancroft Elementary School? Well, you may think I'm going to tell you that you need to close another school. Well, I'm not. I don't wish that on any school. I'm going to tell you that in order to close a building, because in your recovery plan, you talked about closing 1 or more elementary schools. Well, I'm going to put it that you look at the data. Don't close a school. Close the administration building. It is built in 1910.
Your time is up.
Your oldest. I'm going to finish right up. And you can take the administrators and personnel that work there, go right down to Northeast Intermediate School in the abated side, which you've already repaired, and put the offices there. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Frances.
Next, we have Holly Mead.
Hi, Jenny, can you hear me?
Hi, we can hear you.
Can I share my screen or no? I mean, just my visual. I usually don't ask, but I haven't been seen for a long time, and I just think it's nicer if you see the person who's talking.
You want it yourself, your video? Sure.
Yeah, turn your video on,
Can you
of course.
put my video on? Yeah, because I just think it is more impactful when you see a speaker than when you just listen to them. Thank you. I'm good? I can't see you.
We can't see you. We just see an apple.
Okay, that's fine. All right. There were so many line items that I wanted to bring up about the textbooks and do we have a CAMI license and are the budgets in all 3 middle schools equitable? But after listening to the budget and finance meeting, I changed my whole speech. Instead, I'd like to speak to you about your largest line item, regular salary line, item 121. I'd like to thank Sarah Hoffus Hall for her excellent article she wrote about the teachers in our district. For the last 2 years, we've heard countless reports on the status of our buildings, our infrastructure, and how we're going to recover. I truly believe we're on the right path, but the one area you've lost focus on is our teachers. We have instead focused on a lot of assets and liabilities. I've spoken about my colleagues leaving, about retaining the new teachers we have. I've emailed you all on this exact issue. When our Scranton teachers are quitting and going to North Pocono, Delaware Valley, and Abington Heights, we are losing our district's most important assets. We are losing experience, we're losing knowledge, we're losing years of dedication to the children of Scranton. And all of our neighboring districts are reaping the benefits of the Scranton School District's hard work. We've spent thousands of dollars on professional development only to see those teachers leave and take their credits with them. Sadly, I'm trying to show you that our teachers are a commodity that you no longer can afford to lose. In order to protect that asset, you need to stop being complacent and hiding behind your director positions. You need to be at the table to protect your most valuable assets. You need someone negotiating, someone there to witness this process. At least one school board member should be attending each negotiation session. For 4 years, you have let the team handle negotiations and they've been unsuccessful, and you've lost your valuable assets and you'll never get them back. You just said, we will do what we have to do to right this ship. Then why are paras being laid off? It's been 5 years since teachers have had a raise. Would you look into correcting my step? Because it's not right, and every teacher deserves what you are giving to those administrators. You have the decency to tell us specifically how you're going to give them raises, but not what their names are and how much they're getting. Directors, please stop saying this is a relief and a cushion. There is no relief for the children who are losing their teachers every day. As a director in the Scranton School District, can you say you've honestly done everything in your power to provide the best educators for the children of Scranton? As a school board director, have you done everything in your power to resolve this issue? The children in Scranton do not have the power or even a say in keeping our very best teachers. You have that say. You are the voice for these children. You are their last hope for a better education given to them by experienced educators. Get a seat at the table. Pass a resolution tonight stating that at least one of you will be at negotiations. Show our community that you care about them, their children, and their educational future in this district, and not just about the people who are in the administration building. Please have a Merry Christmas. I'm sorry I'm so angry, but I just don't feel appreciated by you anymore.
Thank you, Holly.
Next, we have Jessica Regan.
Can you hear me, Jenny?
We can hear you.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for allowing me to speak this evening. My name is Jessica Regan, and I am a teacher and a taxpayer. Although I am very nervous about speaking and was apprehensive about doing so, the article that was published this weekend in the Scranton Times prompted me to speak at tonight's meeting. I thought it was a fitting time to share my story as the motion for the 2021 budget is on the agenda. 20 years ago, I graduated from East Stroudsburg University and moved back to my family home in Oliphant, Pennsylvania with my parents. My mom then was a guidance counselor in the Scranton School District. She has since retired. The district at that time was one that people were honored to be a part of. The district had hundreds and hundreds of people that wanted to interview and apply for a job. So I decided to leave Oliphant, leave my small town, and move to Scranton, hoping to earn the extra points on the interview. After a few years of long-term sub-jobs and permanent sub-jobs in the district, I, in 2005, was proud to say I was number 2 on the elementary education list. I got my dream job at Northeast Intermediate School, one that many people didn't want to go to. The school that many people didn't want to go to is where I found my family. This building is my home. We are a big family. However, when we finally go back to that school, most of my family's gone. Why? Where are they? Well, they're gone to other schools. They're gone to other districts. They've left. Many of my colleagues have left for better opportunities, better wages. We've lost some great teachers that we will never get back. As administrators and school board members, you should all be waking up tonight and thinking, why? Why is it they're leaving? Every day I question, should I leave? Should I consider a change? But change scares me. So at this point, I'm going to remain loyal to Scranton, but I have to ask myself for how much longer. My husband, who also works in the school district as the district carpenter, and myself bought a modest house in Scranton. We live within our means with our 3 children. At one point, we wanted to build that dream home, but thank God we didn't, because I was banking on that bump step. And Years later, I'm still sitting in around about $55,000. My husband and I live paycheck to paycheck. Just recently, he had to get another job to help supplement our income. This should not be the case. In our mid-40s, we should be living and spending every moment we can making memories with our families, not looking for another job. How that money would come handy right now during the Christmas time. So as you all enjoy the extras this holiday season, think about your employees that are struggling. So for those of you who are on this Zoom meeting tonight, I want you to ponder these questions. Do you struggle and live paycheck to paycheck? Have you received a cost of living increase or a salary increase over the past 5 years? Do you need a part-time job so that you can afford everything your family needs? Do you want to keep losing valuable teachers and staff? What is the worth of your employees? Please think about that. I thank you for your time and I wish you all a happy holiday season.
Thank you, Jessica.
Thank you.
Next, we have Suzanne Fury. Bill, were we able to find her before? We're going to come back to Suzanne.
No.
Suzanne? Okay. Carlene Seco? Carlene Seco?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. Good evening, and thank you for letting me speak tonight. My name is Carlene Seco. I'm a Scranton resident, a graduate of the Scranton School District, a taxpayer, the wife to a 30-year Scranton business owner, a parent of 3 successful graduates of the Scranton School District, and a proud member of the SFT. I have been a teacher in the district for 13 years, and I returned to the classroom after being a stay-at-home mom for 10 years. I accepted the position in the district for many reasons, one of which was the annual contract step movement and the advancement of salary in the 16th year. Throughout my teaching career in Scranton, I have been in multiple contract negotiation, one of which had me in the 23rd hour, waiting to hear if I would begin my first day of teaching in the Scranton School District the next day. Through all of this, I continue. I teach in a school where there are 20+ languages spoken, where my position can get shifted yearly due to enrollment numbers. Every June, I cross my fingers for a full-time schedule at one school. I have witnessed changes in administration at the school and superintendent levels. I have seen school board members come and go and colleagues leave for other districts, but yet I continue to stay committed to the Scranton School District. Now, I am exhausted, feeling unappreciated and defeated. I return to the classroom, committing myself to my students and my love of teaching while not being recognized. My colleagues and I do not feel appreciated, and this is unacceptable. We need to feel valued today, not when you find the money, not when every teacher leaves and no one's left in the district, but today. I am a 3rd generation of a Scranton School District and employee. I know this district, I've seen this district, my family and children have been educated by this district. And to think that my yearly property taxes and my mercantile taxes have paid to contribute to the finances of the Scranton School District and not used properly is unsettling, to say the least. Still, will I be a teacher when our school board and our current administration will be a memory? I'm not sure. If I listen to my colleagues and my family, I should move on. Can I handle more for less? Can I mentally handle doing and teaching more with less? I think you need to know what your teachers in the district are thinking about as we enter another year without a contract and security. In the past few years, the Scranton School District has provided our students with less elementary and middle school classes, high school requirements, seasoned teachers, and now the preschool program ending completely. With all of this equals more families leaving the district because of the lack of quality education. The Scranton School District is lowering their standards. I tell you this tonight for you to recognize the problem before you cannot reverse the outcome. If you are not committing to educating our students, by compensating and respecting our current teachers, then it's just a matter of time that our district will fail the future generation of Scrantonians. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Carlene.
Next, we have Rosemary Boland. Rosemary?
Good evening, directors. I would like to second all of the speakers that you've heard this evening. I applaud everyone and everything they said. To you, the board, and to all of the people listening into this school board meeting tonight. Recently, we read in the newspaper where City Council is thinking about giving people a break in collecting taxes due. Well, every time we give breaks that are 5 and 6 years old, when tax money is due, that is not helping the Scranton School District one bit, nor is it helping anybody else. Like most of the people in my neighborhood, I have a garbage fee paid every year, $300. And I pay that bill, and I think I get the service that money pays for. I don't wait around. I make sure I have that money in the bank. I make sure I save that money so that I can pay that bill on time. I do the same thing with my taxes, and I've been doing that ever since I took possession of my home. I think it's terrible to say somebody owes taxes since 2003 in this town and nobody is collecting them. Rather, they're thinking about giving them a break. Why? Why? Every time you get a tax bill in this town, you have periods of time to pay quarterly on your bill. That's a responsibility every homeowner has. Yes, times are tough. Yes, we have people unemployed. Yes, we have people furloughed. My father was out of work for 2 years, but we paid our taxes and we paid them on time, or else we wouldn't have the home we have now. So why anybody is even thinking of deferring tax monies from the city and giving people a break to pay their taxes when this district of ours is losing teachers? You heard all the list of things that we've lost and given up. That's the children of the city of Scranton. Is it any wonder that every time you read a newspaper article, kids are leaving this town to find jobs someplace else? Is it any wonder when nobody cares about the workers in this city? They don't care about the kids in the city, and they're thinking about deferring or relieving that burden. There's no reason for this. You know a bill is coming on April 1st and you should save. Is it hard? Yes, it's awful. But every teacher in this town, every parent that's been furloughed by the Scranton School District, they had to pay their bills on time when they came, or they wouldn't be where they are right now. We have a lot of potential in this city, but not if we keep this attitude of saying you don't have to pay your bills when they come due. Everybody else has to pay bills, and I'm sick and tired of this. And then I'm listening to teacher after teacher tonight, parents, everybody saying to you to appreciate the workers in this district. Nobody should have to tell you that. I certainly shouldn't have to tell you that. You heard Mrs. McTiernan applauding students tonight. Do you think that just happened? Do you think some child woke up today and knew how to do any of those activities that they've just won the claim for this evening? No, they did not. They had a teacher at the helm, and that teacher guided them and helped them alongside their parents. We work as a team. And it's blasted high time that everybody in the city of Scranton held everybody else accountable. I've lived through PFM. I've lived through all this stuff with Act 47 in the city of Scranton over and over and over again. That's all we hear about in Scranton. Well, we don't get defeated easily in this town. And we're sick and tired of being told we're defeated. We most certainly are not. And I fully expect everyone to stand up and demand that everybody take responsibility and start supporting the city correctly and supporting their school district and supporting their children the way they're supposed to. And again, I want to thank every teacher and parent who spoke tonight and told the truth to the whole city. Our students deserve better, and they're not going to get it with everybody acting with blinders on. It's high time everybody woke up and took responsibility and started to give the kids in this town a break. Let's keep them here for a change. Let's keep them working here for a change instead of losing them to every town all over the kingdom come. And let's stop the bleeding of Scranton teachers leaving the Scranton School District, a district that you hear them tell you time and time again they want to work in, and the students they love, and the faculties that they consider their families. It's time for everybody to step up and stop the bleeding. And yes, I think there will be activity if there isn't a contract soon. I absolutely believe that. Enough is enough. As they say, it is what it is. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Rosemary.
That is all we have for public comment. I just want to say that I did email Suzanne Fury earlier around 7 o'clock, and I didn't hear anything back to see if she was still going to speak. So that's all we have for public comment.
Thank you, Ginny. And we are likely to approve our policy 903.1, accepting written public comments. So certainly if Mrs. Fury wants to participate that way, she is welcome. Thank you. May I have a motion to approve the meeting minutes of November 2nd, 2020, November 9th, 2020, and November 18th, 2020?
I'll make that motion.
You have a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Minutes are approved. May I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I'll make the motion.
May I have a second?
I'll second it.
Roll on the question.
I would just like to, on the question, notice that we are accepting under the consent agenda a toy and food drive at McNichols Plaza being put forward by the principal, Mina Artestina. And I think this is a wonderful thing. Having been the liaison officer for McNichols Plaza School, I have put aside some toys and food for this drive. I would just hope that we could find where we are to deliver it and when, but I'd like to applaud not only the toy and food drive, but also the donations from all the other people that are in under the consent agenda.
Thank you.
Yes, I'd also like to add that I'm excited for to attend next Tuesday's reading at Mrs. Kennedy's classroom with Dr. Killebrew. So I'm very excited.
And I think sometimes we are very blessed with the generosity and support of our public and the work of our teachers going into doing all of the things they do. And I just feel that the donations that we have are gratefully received and greatly go to support the most important people in this district, the students.
Thank you. Anyone else on the question? Roll call, please, Mrs. Orr.
Ms. Cruz?
Yes.
Mrs. Dempsey?
Yes.
Ms. Fox?
Yes.
Ms. Hume?
Yes.
Mr. Malloy?
Yes.
Mr. McAndrew?
Yes.
Mrs. Welby?
Yes.
Mrs. Yanni?
Yes.
Ms. Gilmartin?
Yes.
9 affirmative.
Thank you. We will have motion B7, a motion to approve the 2019 audited financial statements and the single audit.
So move.
May I have a second?
I'll second.
On the question? Roll call, please, Mrs. Orr?
Mrs. Dempsey,
Yes.
Ms. Fox,
Yes.
Ms. Hume,
Yes.
Mr. Malloy,
Yes.
Mr. McAndrew,
Yes.
Mrs. Welby,
Yes.
Mrs. Yanni,
Yes.
Ms. Cruz,
Yes.
Ms. Martin,
Yes.
9 affirmative.
We will have a motion to approve B8, a motion to approve a real estate assessment reduction. The property is at 225 Penn Avenue, FMV reduction in 2020 from 1.2 million to 500,000. The total reduced assessment of approximately $700,000 to $500,000 would result in an annual loss of $10,400 to the district. We have a motion?
So moved.
May I have a second?
Seconded.
On the question?
I just have one quick question. So it went from 1.2 million to 500,000 or 700,000 to 500,000?
It went 1.2 million to 500,000.
But the
To
assessed value.
700,000. Yeah, reduction of 700,000.
Got it. Thank you.
Yep.
Oh, yes. I see what you're saying. That is confusing, the way I reiterated that. Thank you. Mr. Laffey or maybe Mr. Audi, can you just explain this? Is there a change in the condition of the building? What has happened here that requires this?
I'm not sure of the condition. However, the appraiser that we had hired had agreed that the property was over appraised or over assessed. The property owner had, I think, appealed to have it set at 465, and we've come to an agreement on 500,000.
Okay.
But our appraiser that was hired by the district did agree that was too high of a value.
Okay. Okay. Anybody else? Okay. Roll call, please, Mrs. Orr.
Ms. Fox, Ms. Fox,
Sorry, yes.
Ms. Hume,
Yes.
Mr. Malloy,
Yes.
Mr. McAndrew,
Yes.
Mrs. Welby,
Yes.
Mrs. Yanni,
Yes.
Ms. Cruz,
Yes.
Mrs. Dempsey,
Yes.
Ms. Martin,
Yes.
9 affirmative.
We will have a motion to accept the Plan Con K for lease number 192275, 2019 general obligation bonds, which refunded a portion of the 2011 C. This will allow the district to request allowable reimbursement via PDE 2017.
So moved.
Seconded.
Thank you. On the question? Roll call, please, Mrs. Orr.
Ms. Hume,
Yes.
Mr. Malloy,
Yes.
Mr. McAndrew,
Yes.
Mrs. Welby,
Yes.
Mrs. Yanni,
Yes.
Ms. Cruz,
Yes.
Mrs. Dempsey,
Yes.
Ms. Fox,
Yes.
Ms. Martin,
Yes.
9 affirmative.
B10, we will have a motion to award the contract for the feasibility and owner's representative services to DeHi Engineering Incorporated, Bethlehem, PA, 18018. The term is December 2020 to June 30th, 2023. The financial impact for the feasibility study is $143,000. The owner representative services are equal to 2% of project costs and an annual rate of $45,600. We have a
So
motion?
moved.
May I have a second
I'll second.
on the question?
I was hoping perhaps somebody in the administration, maybe even Dr. Finan, could speak to whether that was a bid job and where that bid fell.
Yes, I can. And I also have my team with me on this call if we need additional information. I did send everything to you So you could see where it fell according to the calculations. It was fourth lowest out of 9 proposals, but almost the same as the third lowest proposal. Fees were 54% of the highest fee and 18% lower than the average of all the fees. It is lower than most other firms. They are fairly close, as Bethlehem is not that far. We felt that the fees were very reasonable, and the quality of the proposal and the experience of the firm was phenomenal. It is a professional service contract, so there's no requirement to accept the lowest cost. However, that there would be, if we ever went into a construction project, of course, we would have to accept the lowest fee. And there are many other factors. They've had a lot of experience. The feedback from the references was phenomenal, and we were able to actually call at least 5 references in addition to the ones that came in print. So I don't know if I answered your question, Director Malloy.
You did.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
I think it's important to note that they did score quite a bit higher than the other firms on the scoring sheet that you shared with us. Forgive me, I did not confirm pronunciation before this meeting. I thought of it several times and neglected to do that, so I hope I'm not butchering the name. But and perhaps Nicole and Ian or Pat and Paul could speak to some of the things that did result in this high score, because I understand that these are very comprehensive services, and this is oversight of larger projects. As Dr. Finan said, there will be construction projects that will go out to bid. But, I certainly think as we sit here and talk about taxpayer dollars and being part of a community, we want to understand what put this firm above someone who might be more local.
Sure, I'm happy to jump in on that, although I'll certainly be at least partly echoing Dr. Finan. So we designed the scoring sheet so that we would all be trying to be aligned in how we were evaluating the proposals. And so maybe that's worth just, if you don't mind, I'll just sort of go through. So very important, of course, is sort of their technical understanding and ability to provide the services based on their experience elsewhere and based on their written proposal and understanding of what we asked for in the request for qualifications document. Also extremely important is the background and the experience of both the firm and the personnel. So one of the things that really struck us is that Dewey is the name of the firm, and they are currently working with many school districts in Pennsylvania, more so than other firms and teams that proposed. And what really struck us, one of many things that really struck us, is that their customers have tended to stay with them for many years. In my experience, it's extremely unusual to have the level of repeat customer that Dewey seems to have. And in fact, in the memo, you can see that one of their references actually wrote that they don't want to do any projects without Dewey, and they've been working with them for over a decade. Also very important is accessibility. We wanted to make sure that there wouldn't be any issue with individuals from the firm being physically present at construction jobs and meeting with district personnel as needed. So as Dr. Finan referenced, being in Bethlehem, they were one of the closer firms among the 9 that proposed. Their fees, really important. Dr. Finan already reviewed with you where they landed in the group. So not the cheapest, but far from the most expensive. We had in the references, multiple individuals indicated that they felt that Dewey provided good value. The references we've been talking about quite a bit. The references provided by Dewey, they provided more than the required number of references. More of the references that they provided responded to Mr. Laffey's request to provide references in writing. And then the references that we received for them were more, they tended to be more detailed, and they were consistently more positive than some of the other responses. Diversity of the team we felt was important in terms of economic development. Dewey is a minority business enterprise. And then finally, the quality of the interview. We interviewed every firm and asked every firm to answer the same 2 questions. We asked them how they operate sort of with minimal direction and supervision. And we also asked them to talk about an engagement that is similar to what they're being requested to do for the Scranton School District, and how it went, what went well and what didn't go so well. So with all of that information, we feel like we got a pretty good picture of, again, the experience of the firms, the experience of the individuals who are working for these firms. Also just want to mention that Dewey provided a sample capital program. That's something that not every firm did. And the one that Dewey provided was a sample that they had kind of customized for the Scranton School District. So that also helps us get a better feel for what's coming. And the last thing that I'll mention, I'm sorry for being so long-winded, is that in the memo that you received on this recommendation, there's a table. It's excerpted from the Dewey proposal, but it's a grid that shows the different services, but all services related to what we are requesting for Scranton School District, and that they're providing these services for many or most of 13 Pennsylvania school districts. So again, more extensive experience, more directly relevant.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Anyone else on the question? Okay. Roll call, please, Mrs. Orr.
Mr. Malloy,
Yes.
Mr. McAndrew,
Yes.
Mrs. Welby,
Yes.
Mrs. Yanni,
Yes.
Ms. Cruz,
Yes.
Mrs. Dempsey,
Yes.
Ms. Fox,
Yes.
Ms. Hume,
Yes.
Ms. Gilmartin,
Yes.
9 affirmative.
Thank you. I'm sorry, this is loading slowly. There we go. B11, we will have a motion to approve the capital improvement plan and 2021 capital improvement budget as outlined in the attached document. May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
I'll second.
Second. On the question?
I would just like to say that this is an extraordinary path to the future that has been very well worked out, and that I've asked President Gilmartin and the administration to schedule a meeting for the operations committee specifically to discuss the specifics of the plan, what it means for the district and where we're going forward. And that I just want to congratulate, having been lucky enough to be part of the Recovery Advisory Committee and knowing the challenges of capital improvements and facilities reallocation and all of that. This really does start to give us the steps along the road to getting our buildings even better for our kids.
Thank you. I agree. This is a culmination of months of presentations that were, top level for all of us. And now seeing this all come together in this document that, as Rose said, is a real path forward for us is wonderful. So thank you for all of your hard work. And, I'm very happy to be able to reference this document as we move through all the steps of this process. Anybody else? Roll call, please, Mrs. Orr.
Mr. McAndrew,
Yes.
Mrs. Welby,
Yes.
Mrs. Yanni,
Yes.
Ms. Cruz,
Yes.
Mrs. Dempsey,
Yes.
Ms. Fox,
Yes.
Ms. Hume,
Yes.
Mr. Malloy,
Yes.
Ms. Gilmartin,
Yes.
9 affirmative.
We will have a motion B12, a resolution to file of solicitor number 1, 2021, to authorize the expenditure of $166,468,576 for budget year 2021, as per the attached.
So
Maybe.
moved.
Second,
I'll second that.
on the question.
Yes, on the question, I know it was stated earlier tonight that, the state is financially struggling right now. But I also, there's a lot of taxpayers who are struggling. There's a lot of people going through hell right now because of the pandemic. A lot of taxpayers have lost their businesses, due to the state having shut them down. A lot of people are out of jobs, and it's a really tough time. I know we were making some, there's some great parts of this budget. I know we're, fixing some mistakes that were made in the past, regarding salaries and a few other things. But there's a lot of, the taxpayers are always getting the burden of, the sins of the past. And I think, Scranton's such a great community. When somebody's down, people rally and stand, help each other out. And there's a lot of people down right now. And I think, using some of that, surplus that we have, offset this tax increase, I think we, should have been taken into consideration. And I don't think right now, with everything going on, I'm going to vote no tonight because of the tax increase.
Anyone else?
Yes. I hear very much what Director McAndrew is saying. And I wish that somehow, instead of 12 inches of snow on Wednesday, we were getting 12 inches of money. And I totally accept that the burden on the taxpayers of Scranton at this crucial time are horrid. I mean, I can't find a more eloquent word than horrid. There are many better words. I will be voting yes on this because I think that the projected surplus in the budget is not yet here. It's monopoly money, and we live in such uncertain times with the possibilities of decreases in state revenue, with who knows what 2021 has in store for us. We don't know whether we're going to have fluctuations in our expenditure or fluctuations in our receipts. And I think that although we did, and I have to absolutely congratulate an administration that managed for the first time since the year 2006 to put a positive amount of money into our general fund, which is, I mean, we have kids going into high school who weren't born the last time this district was able to have a budget that came in with a general fund surplus. But I think it would be fiscally irresponsible for us to take that small reserve that we have that's come out of last year and not use it for the rainy day fund, for the budget fund, to keep that aside. I think it would be fiscally irresponsible for us at this particular point of uncertainty to use that. Having said that, I do know that in the budget projections that were published with the budget, if we can achieve this year the funds surplus for the general funds that we may project, there is certainly provision in there that we would look at the tax situation for the 2022 budget. With total understanding of the impact on the taxpayer of Scranton, I will be taking what I believe to be the fiscally responsible path and voting yes.
And may I just follow up on Director Hume's statement there?
Of course.
I too, I'm struggling with a tax increase with everything as Director McAndrew stated that our community is going through. So if anyone wasn't able to watch our previous budget meeting, can I ask you, Dr. Finan, to just reiterate your thoughts as to how this surplus fund goes in line with the recovery plan and the necessity of this surplus?
Certainly, thank you, Director Yanni. In the recovery plan, there are several points to be made. One is to develop a fund balance, and to just simplify that, that means develop a savings account, if you will. And as Director Hume just said, the Scranton School District has not had a fund balance since 2006, a positive fund balance. And the problems that the district has had that has actually led to your recovery is you've had many boards have gotten to this point, haven't had enough money to balance their budget, and they had to go out and borrow. Some years it was 10 million, some years it was 20 million, some years it was 30 million. That just added up. And now we have to pay those bills back because of the situation that we are in with COVID. And no one wishes this to ever occur again in our lifetime. But because of that, we have ended up with having to provide services to children online, remote learning. And we've had some savings, which we have actually been talking about since the summer. We've talked about the savings that we would have with personnel, the savings that we would have with transportation, the savings that we would have with our other services. Those savings have added up, and we do have, and I love the term, we do have some monopoly money here. It's monopoly money because if we had returned under normal circumstances, we would not have those savings. We had to work very hard to balance this budget, and we do have some money in fund balance. And if a year from now we are sitting here with that nice sum of money in fund balance, we would be speaking very differently about whether or not we would have a tax increase to the Act 1 index. We're not there yet, okay? This is an anomaly for a year, as everyone would understand. So what we need to do is set our money aside, still wisely manage our funds, and then manage through where we need to be through very difficult times with the pandemic, as well as how we will open schools. And then next summer, when we start to talk about our preliminary budget, we will know where we stand with these funds. It is very important that you start to have fund balance. The recommendation by the Department of Education for a district our size with this size of budget would be 8%, which is a little over $13 million. Just so everyone in the public understands, our cost per month, our budget per month, it costs us a little over $14 million to operate every month. So having a fund balance, a healthy fund balance of 13 I think it's 6 million would be wonderful. We're not there yet, okay? We have about a little over $6 million that we're going to make some assignments because we have some shortfalls in subsidy that we're expecting in the near future. One, because of transportation. We run transportation, but we also get subsidized for that. Only 30 cents on the dollar. It's not a lot. But when that subsidy will hit, which most likely will be 22, year 22, it falls through 2 of our years. We have to have the funds to be able, we have to have a fund balance to be able to meet that loss of subsidy. We also have a decrease in our student population. I've been mentioning that almost every meeting. That will lead to less what is called BEF and SEF, basic education funding. And special education funding. That's based on an ADM, average daily membership, and that's averaged over 3 years. So we have to be able to have the money to plan for that loss in subsidy. So all of this is about planning. It's about managing, just how you manage your home budgets. You know, if you have a little extra money, you set it aside because you know, and Ms. Boland spoke earlier about setting money aside to pay for the garbage, setting money aside to pay for taxes. Well, that's what we're doing with this money. We're setting it aside to pay for future expenditures that we know we will have. I hope that we can continuously head in the right direction. And so we can all take a breath maybe a year from now if we are sitting in the same place with some funds for in our fund balance. Again, we're not there yet. I'm concerned about revenues. I'm concerned about taxes, even your local taxes. We're down about 830,000. We just heard that we approved a assessed valuation of a property lower. That means that we will get lower taxes from that property. Your assessed valuation in your city is declining, which impacts our taxes. So there are lots of factors here. I'm here to tell you this is an excellent budget. It is one that I am very proud of on your behalf. People worked very hard to bring this budget in alignment. A lot of sacrifices have been made along the way to get to where we are. And I applaud everyone who has worked on it. I applaud you board members who have played a very important role and listened to us from last June all the way on when we continue to talk about it. I wish I could tell you that we have totally righted the ship. We aren't there yet, but we're heading in the right direction. And it will take more sacrifice to get to where we need to be. If anyone is interested, there are lots of pages in the recovery plan that speaks to this. And we're holding fast because that's putting us on the path that will make us able to afford the things that you should be able to afford as a district. One step at a time, and we're headed there. It is a good budget. It's one that has required a lot of work and a lot of predictability. I wish we had the magic ball to say, yes, this is what, how it will end up. We don't know that. What we do know is we have a little bit of cushion that will be able to take us through some of those rocky parts if our block grants don't come through, if our assessed valuation continues to head in the wrong direction, if people don't have the money to pay their taxes, we can carry through because we need to pay our bills on a monthly basis. And that's that $14 million. So I hope I answered your question. I think this is a very fine budget for the Scranton School District.
Thank you.
Anyone else on the question?
I just want to reiterate, this fund balance of $8 million is still not at the PDE required 13.6 million or 8% of our budget. So while we're getting there, we aren't there yet. So I don't view this, especially knowing what's coming down the pike in 2020, 2021, 2022, and possible reductions in revenue and increase in expenditures, reductions in subsidies, things like that. So for those reasons, I will be voting yes.
Yes, on the question. Dr. Finan, I'm just looking for a little bit of clarification on something, being as you just stated that we are not there yet. If we were to vote down this budget because of the tax increase, would we not be following the recovery plan and be at risk of receivership?
We would not be following, yes. The answer is we would be not following the recovery plan. Again, I can't speak to the receivership. That is a few more steps and it's above my pay grade to answer this evening. But it would be a step in the wrong direction. I'm here to help guide you and provide the resources that will and hopefully I've done that to help us create a budget that I believe and is affordable and is putting us again on the right path. The recommendation again is to the ACT1 index, and certainly last summer when we talked about this, that was very clear. We even wrote for the exceptions, although we didn't qualify for those. I still believe that that was the right decision. Again, I do have the ability to amend that recommendation next summer if we are looking at ending the year in a positive note. I will be bringing a different, most likely a different recommendation to you. But I will caution everyone, I think the challenges, and I believe one of the speakers tonight spoke to that, the challenges that are ahead of us academically for our children following this anomaly of a year, I think will require extra funds. And I'm talking about the ability to meet student needs after we've been remote or after students have been to perhaps a different learning environment or a different school. I think we may need different materials, maybe new materials, maybe different materials. I don't know that answer yet. Every school is struggling with that question. Because no one has that answer. But I think we're going to need to have a variety of resources for our teachers. So having a fund balance and having some of that money available will be very important to the excellent teachers. And I agree, we have excellent teachers. When I heard Superintendent McTiernan speak of all the accomplishments, I was so proud. I was just so proud of our students and our teachers who have moved them through this difficult time, especially some of the, the ability to create a newspaper digitally. How wonderful is that? A skill that perhaps they can use in their future as well, along with so many of the accomplishments. But I speak to you really as a teacher now, because I do and am concerned about how we will meet student needs upon return to school. So I think it's very important to preserve these dollars that we have right now because of the pandemic to be able to afford what some of our needs may be when we open schools normally.
Can I just ask one short clarifying question, Dr. Finan? At the moment, as I see it, our fund balance is 1.4, and that's actual money that we actually have in the fund balance, right?
Correct.
The projected increase that we're looking at to this, well, the 1st of January, the figures I'm looking at here and the 1st of January 21 are an additional 6 point something million. I would never have passed math in your school.
6.7.
But 6.7. But that's money that we don't actually have yet. We keep talking about it as if it's an 8.1 million positive fund balance, but it's not. And if we, God help us, and I pray we don't, run into headwinds during the financial year next year, during the budgetary year 21, that money will not be there in that fund balance at the end. It's just money that if everything goes right and nothing goes wrong, that's what we may have on the 1st of January 2021. But it does give us the flexibility, having that money in our that money in our budget, not yet in our capital fund balance, but in our budget. That gives us the flexibility to meet, say, the trauma or education we're going to need when these kids come back to us sooner rather than later.
Sure.
All of those unexpected things.
Sure.
So we're not saying that, so this is really flexible, and it's not concrete money. It's not concrete savings yet. It may be, but it's not yet. Am I right?
That is correct. That's correct. Thank you.
Anyone else on the question? And just so everyone is aware, there are several resolutions here. I'm not sure after listening to this conversation that everyone is clear on how this goes. This is one step in this process, and there are several more to come. So we are now approving the expenditures. Okay. Roll call, please, Mrs. Orr.
Mrs. Welby,
Yes.
Mrs. Yanni,
Yes.
Ms. Cruz,
Yes.
Mrs. Dempsey,
Yes.
Ms. Fox,
Yes.
Ms. Hume,
Yes.
Mr. Malloy,
Yes.
Mr. McAndrew,
No.
Ms. Martin,
Yes.
8 affirmative, 1 negative, motion passes.
We will have a resolution to file of solicitor number 2, 2021, authorizing the levy of a tax of $142.987 mils per $1,000 of assessed valuation per the attached.
So moved.
May I have a second
I'll second.
on the question? Roll call, please, Mrs. Orr.
Mrs. Yanni, Mrs. Yanni,
You're on mute.
oh, I'm sorry.
Yes. Can you hear me now?
Yes, sorry about
Okay.
that.
Yes.
Ms. Cruz,
Yes.
Mrs. Dempsey,
Yes.
Ms. Fox,
Yes.
Ms. Hume,
Yes.
Mr. Malloy,
Yes.
Mr. McAndrew,
No.
Mrs. Welby,
Yes.
Ms. Martin,
Yes.
8 affirmative, 1 negative, motion passes.
Resolution to file of solicitor number 3, 2021, authorizing the levy of Act 511 taxes under the authority of the Local Tax Enabling Act of 1965 for 2021, rate to be separately approved. The levies are as follows: Levy 1, earned income tax; Levy 2, mercantile business privilege tax license; Levy 3, mercantile tax; Levy 4, business privilege tax; Levy 5, occupation privilege tax; Levy 6, realty transfer tax. We have a motion?
So moved.
We have a second
I'll second.
on the question? Roll call, please, Mrs. Orr.
Ms. Cruz,
Yeah.
Mrs. Dempsey,
Yes.
Ms. Fox,
Yes.
Ms. Hume,
Yes.
Mr. Malloy,
Yes.
Mr. McAndrew,
No.
Mrs. Welby,
Yes.
Mrs. Yanni,
Yes.
Ms. Martin,
Yes.
8 affirmative, 1 negative, motion passes.
Resolution to file of solicitor number 3, 2021, Levy 1, earned income tax, continue the levy of 1% being a tax imposed per the attached resolution. The financial impact is $10,255,910. We have a motion?
So moved.
We have a second?
I'll second.
On the question? Roll call, please, Mrs. Orr.
Mrs. Dempsey,
Yes.
Ms. Fox,
Yes.
Ms. Hume,
Yes.
Mr. Malloy,
Yes.
Mr. McAndrew,
Yes.
Mrs. Welby,
Yes.
Mrs. Yanni,
Yes.
Ms. Cruz,
Yes.
Ms. Martin,
Yes.
9 affirmative.
Resolution to file of solicitor number 3, 2021, levy 2, mercantile business privilege tax license, continue a tax of $5 for the school license tax as attached. Have a motion?
So moved.
I'll second.
Roll call, please, Mrs. Orr?
Ms. Fox,
Yes.
Ms. Hume,
Yes.
Mr. Malloy,
Yes.
Mr. McAndrew,
No.
Mrs. Welby,
Yes.
Mrs. Yanni,
Yes.
Ms. Cruz,
Yes.
Mrs. Dempsey,
Yes.
Ms. Martin.
Yes.
8 affirmative, 1 negative, motion passes.
Resolution to file of solicitor number 3, 2021, levy 3 mercantile tax, continue a tax rate of 0.004000452 wholesale and 0.000679 retail on each gross volume of business based upon annual gross receipts from the preceding year 2020 as per attached resolution. The financial impact is $1,128,114.
So moved.
May I have a second
I'll second.
on the question? Roll call, please.
Madam President, I'm sorry, but
That's quite
I think the record would bear me out that I don't know if you called on the question for the preceding motion.
Oh, I apologize.
But I think we covered all of it in our debate and on the question as of the first motion, but I just, for procedurally speaking,
Thank you.
you're welcome.
It's all that experience as temporary president, isn't it? Nice job. Your quick study. Should I rectify that in any way, Ginny? Are there any, or Mr. Rowdy?
I defer to Mr. Rowdy.
Should we just back up one and
Yeah, I would do that.
Okay, so go back to
Levy 2.
resolution file of solicitor number 3, 2021, levy 3 mercantile tax.
Yes.
Okay. On the question, well, may I have the second again?
I'll second.
Or a motion and then a second?
I'll make the motion.
And I'll second.
Second again, thank you. On the question? Roll call, please, Mrs. Orr?
Ms. Hume,
Yes.
Mr. Malloy,
yes.
Mr. McAndrew,
No.
Mrs. Welby,
Yes.
Mrs. Yanni,
Yes.
Ms. Cruz,
Yes.
Mrs. Dempsey,
Yes.
Ms. Fox,
Yes.
Ms. Martin.
Yes.
8 affirmative, 1 negative, motion passes.
Resolution to file of solicitor number 3, 2021, levy 4 business privilege tax, continue a tax rate of 0.00513 on each gross volume of business based upon annual gross receipts from the preceding year 2020 as per attached resolution. The budget impact is $5,467,969. May I have a motion?
So moved.
Second
I'll second.
on the question? Roll call, please, Mrs. Orr?
Mr. Malloy,
Yes.
Mr. McAndrew,
Yes.
Mrs. Welby,
Yes.
Mrs. Yanni,
Yes.
Ms. Cruz,
Yes.
Mrs. Dempsey,
Yes.
Ms. Fox,
Yes.
Ms. Hume,
Yes.
Ms. Martin.
Yes.
9 affirmative.
Resolution to file of solicitor number 3, 2021, levy 5, local service tax, continue a tax of $5 on each individual engaging in an occupation as defined by statute per attached resolution. The financial impact is $165,000.
So moved.
I'll second.
On the question? Roll call, please, Mrs. Orr?
Mr. McAndrew,
Yes.
Mrs. Welby,
Yes.
Mrs. Yanni,
Yes.
Ms. Cruz,
Yes.
Mrs. Dempsey,
Yes.
Ms. Fox,
Yes.
Ms. Hume,
Yes.
Mr. Malloy,
Yes.
Ms. Gilmartin,
Yes.
9 affirmative.
A resolution to file of solicitor number 3, 2021, levy 6, Realty Transfer Tax. Continue a tax of 0.5% on the transaction of the transfer of real property per attached resolution. The financial impact is $600,000.
So moved.
I have a second
I'll second.
on the question. Roll call, please, Mrs. Orr.
Mrs. Welby,
Yes.
Mrs. Yanni,
Yes.
Ms. Cruz,
Yes.
Mrs. Dempsey,
Yes.
Ms. Fox,
Yes.
Ms. Hume,
Yes.
Mr. Malloy,
Yes.
Mr. McAndrew,
Yes.
Ms. Gilmartin,
Yes.
9 affirmative.
A resolution to file of solicitor number 4, 2021, approve the general conditions for 2021 per the attached.
So moved.
Second.
On the question?
Yeah, on the question, can we just explain what we're approving here? Because I'm a little lost. I can't find some of these in my packet. So I just have a quick question to clarify what we're actually approving right now.
I can read them to you. The general conditions, in order to fully effectuate the tax levies, their implementation and collection, the district secretary and/or the district solicitor are hereby authorized and directed to act on behalf of the school district in all matters necessary in carrying out the intent hereof, including but not limited to legal advertisement of same where required. All of the said levies are made in order to fund the general accounts of the school district in the conduct of a thorough and efficient public school system, in trust to the Board of Directors of the School District of the City of Scranton. Accordingly, all of the actions are collectively and individually intended to continue in effect all previous actions taken on like and similar matters, subject only to any amendments herein. To effect the tenor hereof, all previous enactments or funds appropriated on matters herein set forth shall be so adjusted, conformed, and compounded, including but not limited to budget appropriations made to or on behalf of the Act 511 tax collector and the administrative and salaried staff as supervised by him, and rules and regulations as published with the enactment or reenactment of Act 511 taxes, which actions shall commence January 1st, 2021.
Thanks.
Sure. On the question?
We did make that motion. Okay.
Yes. Anybody else? Roll call, please.
Mrs. Yanni,
Yes.
Ms. Cruz,
Yes.
Ms. Dempsey,
Yes.
Ms. Fox,
Yes.
Ms. Hume, Ms. Hume,
Yes.
Mr. Malloy,
Yes.
Mr. McAndrew,
Yes.
Mrs. Welby,
Yes.
Ms. Gilmartin,
Yes.
9 affirmative.
Resolution to file of solicitor number 5, 2021, appointment of real estate and/or 511 tax collector, William Fox is appointed as collector of taxes for year 2021 per the attached resolution.
So moved.
Second.
Second. On the question? Roll call, please, Mrs. Orr.
Ms. Cruz,
Yes.
Mrs.
Yes.
Dempsey,
Yes.
Ms. Fox,
Yes.
Ms. Hume,
Yes.
Mr. Malloy,
Yes.
Mr. McAndrew,
Yes.
Mrs. Welby,
Yes.
Mrs. Yanni,
Yes.
Ms. Gilmartin,
Yes.
9 affirmative.
Resolution to file of solicitor number 6, 2021, appointment of 511 tax collector, earned income tax collector. Berkheimer Associates is appointed as collector of earned income taxes for year 2021 per the attached resolution. The motion?
So moved.
Second.
On the question? Roll call, please, Mrs. Orr?
Mrs. Dempsey,
Yes.
Ms. Fox,
Yes.
Ms. Hume,
Yes.
Mr. Malloy,
Yes.
Mr. McAndrew,
Yes.
Mrs. Welby,
Yes.
Mrs. Janney,
Yes.
Ms. Cruz,
Yes.
Ms. Martin,
Yes.
9 affirmative.
Resolution to file of solicitor number 7, 2021, designation of depositories for tax collections. First National Bank, Clark Summit, is hereby designated depository in which the funds and monies of and in the custody of tax collectors may be deposited per attached resolution. May I have a
So
motion?
moved.
May I have a
Second.
second?
I'll second.
On the question? Roll call, please, Mrs. Orr?
Ms. Fox,
Yes.
Ms. Hume,
Yes.
Mr. Malloy,
Yes.
Mr. McAndrew,
Yes.
Mrs. Welby,
Yes.
Mrs. Janney,
Yes.
Ms. Cruz,
Yes.
Mrs. Dempsey,
Yes.
Ms. Martin,
Yes.
9 affirmative.
A resolution to file of solicitor number 8, 2021, appointment of administrative hearing officer William Fox and/or his legal successor is recognized and/or appointed as the administrative hearing officer per the attached resolution.
So moved.
I second.
On the question? Roll call, please, Mrs. Orr?
Ms. Hume,
Yes.
Mr. Malloy,
Yes.
Mr. McAndrew,
Yes.
Mrs. Welby,
Yes.
Mrs. Janney,
Yes.
Ms. Cruz,
Yes.
Mrs. Dempsey,
Yes.
Ms. Fox,
Yes.
Ms. Martin,
Yes.
9 affirmative.
A resolution to file of solicitor number 9, 2021, adopt the taxpayer Bill of Rights disclosure statement pursuant to Act 50 of 1998, Section 8423, per the attached.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
On the question? Roll call, please, Mrs. Orr?
Mr. Malloy,
Yes.
Mr. McAndrew,
Yes.
Mrs. Welby,
Yes.
Mrs. Janney,
Yes.
Ms. Cruz,
Yes.
Mrs. Dempsey,
Yes.
Ms. Fox,
Yes.
Ms. Hume,
Yes.
Ms. Martin,
Yes.
9 affirmative.
Thank you. Mrs. Orr, can you confirm that I have completed the resolutions? Make sure
I
do.
think we got everything.
That is it. That's the last one.
Okay,
Okay.
good.
Thank
Thank you.
you.
Didn't want to miss anything.
No, you got them all.
Thank you. We have no report under community relations or education operations. We have E1, a motion to approve the Lackawanna College spring contract for the time period Sunday, March 14th, 2021 through Saturday, May 22nd, 2021 for the use of Memorial Stadium for their football practices and scheduled game. The agreement is attached. The fee schedule is 14-day practices at a rate of $250 per practice plus maintenance fees, 24 weekday practices at a rate of $250 per practice plus maintenance fees, five home games at a fee of $2,500 for day games and $3,300 for night games, $23,600 due to the district plus maintenance fees.
So moved.
May I have a second?
I'll second.
On the question?
Can I
Gentileza did share the agreement, which does include information about the COVID-19 restrictions and a holds harmless agreement. So thank you. We discussed it at the work session. Anyone else? Okay. Roll call, please, Mrs. Orr.
Mr. McAndrew,
Yes.
Mrs. Welby,
Yes.
Mrs. Janney,
Yes.
Ms. Cruz,
Yes.
Mrs. Dempsey,
Yes.
Ms. Fox,
Yes.
Ms. Hume,
Yes.
Mr. Malloy,
Yes.
Ms. Martin,
Yes.
9 affirmative.
Personnel, motion F1. We have a motion to approve the personnel report as attached.
So moved.
Seconded.
On the question?
Yes, on the question, I'd like to congratulate the new hires and appointees and thank those who are leaving us for their years of service and dedication to the students of the district. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Roll call, please, Mrs. Orr.
Mrs. Welby,
Yes.
Mrs. Yanni,
Yes.
Ms. Cruz,
Yes.
Mrs. Dempsey,
Yes.
Ms. Fox,
Yes.
Ms. Hume,
Yes.
Mr. Malloy,
Yes.
Mr. McAndrew,
Yes.
Ms. Martin,
Yes.
9 affirmative.
Also under personnel, motion F2, a motion to approve the stop loss policy with Vista renewal as previously provided for review. The stop loss policy protects the district financially against high-level healthcare claims.
So moved.
May I have a second?
I'll second.
On the question? Roll call, please, Mrs. Orr.
Mrs. Yanni,
Yes.
Ms. Cruz,
Yes.
Mrs. Dempsey,
Yes.
Ms. Fox,
Yes.
Ms. Hume,
Yes.
Mr. Malloy,
Yes.
Mr. McAndrew,
Yes.
Mrs. Welby,
Yes.
Ms. Martin,
Yes.
9 affirmative.
Under policy, we will have motion G4 to reaffirm the principles of governance and leadership as attached and adopted as policy 011, May 2nd, 2016. Those principles are to advocate earnestly, lead responsibly, govern effectively, plan thoughtfully, evaluate continuously, communicate clearly, and act ethically.
So moved.
May I have a second?
Seconded.
On the question? Mrs. Orr, we would ordinarily be signing a poster that would hang in
Correct.
the boardroom.
Yes.
I wonder if we might investigate if there is a way to do that virtually and put it on the website at this time. So,
There is a PDF that I could send out to everyone and we can get it on there. Certainly.
that would be great. We'll talk about
Okay.
that. Thank you. Anyone else? Roll call, please. Mrs. Orr?
Ms. Cruz,
Yes.
Mrs. Dempsey,
Yes.
Ms. Fox,
Yes.
Ms. Hume,
Yes.
Mr. Malloy,
Yes.
Mr. McAndrew,
Yes.
Mrs. Welby,
Yes.
Mrs. Yanni,
Yes.
Ms. Martin,
Yes.
9 affirmative.
Special education, we have motion H2, designate Director James Malloy as the representative to the NEI number 19, effective through December 31st, 2021.
So moved.
Second.
On the question?
Do we need a roll call or a motion vote for this one?
I think we could have a motion vote, but I don't know why we would single him out.
Yeah.
So roll call, please, Mrs. Orr. And who knows, maybe there's someone who feels strongly.
No. I just, you can clarify for me tomorrow. Sorry.
John, do I have to abstain?
No,
No, you do not have to abstain.
but you only get one vote.
Roll call, Mrs. Orr.
Mrs. Dempsey,
Yes.
Ms. Fox,
Yes.
Ms. Hume,
Yes.
Mr. Malloy,
Yes.
Mr. McAndrew,
Yes.
Mrs. Welby,
Yes.
Mrs. Yanni,
Yes.
Ms. Cruz,
Yes.
Ms. Martin,
Yes.
9 affirmative.
Vendor relations, motion I1. We will have a motion to award the art supplies bid for 2020 These items are utilized in art classes throughout the district. They are budgeted for and paid for out of the individual schools' accounts. The
So
total.
moved.
Second,
Second.
on the question. We have a total of $24,754.69 in supplies. For 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, about 8 vendors. Anyone else? Roll call, please, Mrs. Orr.
Ms. Fox,
Yes.
Ms. Hume,
Yes.
Mr. Malloy,
Yes.
Mr. McAndrew,
Yes.
Mrs. Welby,
Yes.
Mrs. Janney,
Yes.
Ms. Cruz,
Yes.
Mrs. Dempsey,
Yes.
Ms. Gilmartin,
Yes.
9 affirmative.
I2, a motion to award the music bid for 2020. Again, items utilized by students in our music classes. Washington Music Company, $4,312.30. Parapole Music Company, $756. The total is $5,068.30. Have a motion?
I'll make the motion.
I'll second.
On the question?
I just think it's important that now more than ever, it seems like a dedication to having the arts as a part of our curriculum is it can't be understated, the importance of that. So for that reason, I'm very much voting yes.
Thank you. Anybody else? Roll call, please, Mrs. Orr.
Ms. Hume,
Yes.
Mr. Malloy,
Yes.
Mr. McAndrew,
Yes.
Mrs. Welby,
Yes.
Mrs. Janney,
Yes.
Ms. Cruz,
Yes.
Mrs. Dempsey,
Yes.
Ms. Fox,
Yes.
Ms. Gilmartin,
Yes.
9 affirmative.
I3, a motion to award the lumber bid for 2020, items utilized in our industrial arts classes. Forest County Wood Products, $53.7540. Mann and Parker Lumber Company, $5,200. O'Shea Lumber, $62.20, a total of $10,637.60.
So moved.
May I have a second?
I'll second.
On the question? Roll call, please, Mrs. Orr.
Mr. Malloy,
Yes.
Mr. McAndrew,
Yes.
Mrs. Welby,
Yes.
Mrs. Janney,
Yes.
Ms. Cruz,
Yes.
Mrs. Dempsey,
Yes.
Ms. Fox,
Yes.
Ms. Hume,
Yes.
Ms. Gilmartin,
Yes.
9 affirmative.
I4, a motion to award general supplies bid for 2020. These items are general office supplies, paper, staples, etc., utilized throughout the district. We have a total of $168,705 from 8 vendors.
So moved.
I'll second.
On the question? Roll call, please, Mrs. Orr.
Mr. McAndrew,
Yes.
Mrs. Welby,
Yes.
Mrs. Janney,
Yes.
Ms. Cruz,
Yes. Excuse
Mrs.
me.
Dempsey,
Yeah.
Yes.
Ms. Fox,
Yes.
Ms. Hume,
Yes.
Mr. Malloy,
Yes.
Ms. Gilmartin,
Yes.
9 affirmative.
Thank you. Do we have any new business at this time? Yes.
One short item, President Gilmartin. On the 2nd of December, the quarterly meeting of the Environmental Task Force, which is the committee between the administration, the board, members of the community and environmental consultants, was held. The minutes are up on the website under the Environmental Task Force button, and we will be discussing it in detail if anyone wants more information at the proposed Operations Committee meeting to be held, I hope, in January.
Very good. Thank you. Anybody else? Director Yanni?
I was just hoping that Mr. Doherty could give us some sort of an update on those Chromebooks that we're hoping are going to arrive this month.
I thought I was going to get through the whole night without coming off of mute.
No.
So close. So close. Good evening, everyone, and thank you for the opportunity to address the board. As I've said many times, we have a standing call with CDW and Lenovo every Tuesday morning. So I'll be getting updated information tomorrow morning at 10. Last Tuesday, we probably had the best news that we've heard the entire time. In that last Tuesday, and Bill Del Prete, who oversees our whole Zoom here, he's also on the call with me. And Bill, so speak up if I forget anything. But they had 85,000 units incoming from Lenovo, and the Scranton order of 8,300 is contained within those 85,000 units that were being shipped to CDW. Now, once they arrive at CDW, then they go into white glove service, which makes it network ready for our network, and they get delivered specifically to the individual school sites. So we won't have to worry about distribution on our end or setup on our end. But that white glove service does take about 5 to 7 days. The best way I could probably sum it up is we should be starting 2021 in a much stronger position than we're ending 2020. So 2021 already seems to be looking up a little bit. And Mr. Del Prete, if I forgot anything, please speak up. But I look forward. I'm very hopeful for tomorrow's call at 10 a.m.
That is good news. Will you be doing any kind of a reassessment? I know I've had parents say that they've purchased their own private computer. So will you be reaching out, or how will you then distribute those?
Well, the first thing we're going to do, obviously, is it to people that requested devices but did not get one. Obviously, they're the people that we're going to take up first. And then at some point, the units that we have out there that are 3 and 4 years old, then we'll start recycling those with the newer units and bringing those other units back. But I mean, our goal number one is to get it into the hands of people that have nothing.
And Director Yanni, I think it's a good time that I address this. I understand that everybody knows that I'm not a big fan of rumors. So I understand that there's a rumor out there that West Scranton High School is hiding Chromebooks in the basement. I did address this with the principal, who said that is absolutely not true. So again, Mr. DeLuca said they are not hiding Chromebooks in the basement of West Scranton High School. So hopefully that will eliminate that rumor. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Superintendent McTiernan.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Anyone else have anything for the good of the order?
Merry Christmas.
I would just like to wish everyone a very happy holiday season. Stay safe and stay healthy. Thank you.
Same.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Happy holidays.
Have a wonderful holiday, everybody.
Happy holidays.
To everybody, yes, thank
Merry
you.
Christmas, everyone.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you for all of the hard work on this budget. This is certainly a much stronger place than we ever anticipated to be at this point. And I hope it is the beginning of many, many more, and lots of hard work ahead. But I know we will get through all of this together. And I just really appreciate everyone's dedication and again, as I always say, the good conversations we have, the great debate and dialogue. And I hope we are sharing information out to the community and will continue to do so. As Director Dempsey referenced earlier, I really do want to see us focus on some board training. And, I've heard mention of professional development so often this evening, and I certainly agree that that is a very, very valuable commodity. So I hope it's something that through our PSBA membership, we are able to build as school directors. And I look forward to all of that work with all of you. And please, a very happy holiday, and most importantly, a healthy new year. So take care, everybody.
Thank you.
See you soon.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Good night. I'll make the motion.
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay.